What's up guys, today I'm going to show you how to do hyperlapses like these. I can't stress enough how much I wish there were clouds in the sky because it just adds movement to the hyperlapses and makes it look a whole lot better. But anyways, nothing we can do about that. First things first. Okay, so I have the Sony A7s II. Does not matter if you have a Sony, Nikon, Canon, Panasonic. Doesn't matter, as the most important thing about shooting photos for a hyperlapse is that you have the ability to see grid lines on your monitor. So let me show you what I mean. So I'm going to turn on my camera, and in my functions menu I have set up to where I can quickly access my grid lines, and I'm going to turn on this diagonal and square grid, and now I'm sure you guys can see we have all these grid lines. And that is important because whenever you shoot a hyperlapse, you are shooting an object or subject or point of interest, and you want to make sure that whatever that is, you always have it on one of your grid lines, no matter which one you want it to be. So I'm going to pull out the camera, and I'm just going to use this top middle grid line to always make sure that I take my picture while my object, subject, point of interest is on that top center grid line. So a couple of things. I know you're not going to be able to see my screen because of this whole sun situation and all that good stuff, but as I just said in the previous clip, I'm going to have a grid line right here on the top middle, and I just have to pick what I want my subject, object, or point of interest to be. And for this first one, I'm just going to use this basketball field house, the gymnasium. And what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to get over here a little ways, and the top peak of it right in the middle, that's going to be the point that I am going to always shoot every picture on that grid line that I showed you guys in the previous clip. Now, I can monitor it on this, but I'm not going to be able to see it too good, so I'm going to have to switch to where I look through my viewfinder. So that's going to be the majority of the view from my GoPro on my head. But I just kind of want to show how I'm going to move and take the photos and how hyperlapses work. Now, another thing I'm going to say is that what makes a hyperlapse is that it's a time lapse taken by pictures. So, you know, you see a lot of time lapses where you could just set a camera down and tell the camera to take a picture every 3 seconds, hit the shutter, and it'll sit there and just take pictures every 3 seconds. Of course, you'd want clouds in the sky or movement or something to give your time lapse character. Well, you don't have anything when your camera's just sitting still if you don't have clouds, pictures, people, movement, all that good stuff. So what the hyperlapse does is it is a time lapse that you're taking by pictures, but there is movement to the frame, no matter if you're walking forward towards something, so it gives you the illusion that you're zooming in on something, or if you're moving sideways, or if, say, this little X right here was our point of interest where the two parking lot lines intersect, or you could actually even orbit or do what I call a swing like this. So I'm going to do a couple of different hyperlapses here, and the first one we're going to do is what I call a zoom hyperlapse, to where we're just going to go in a straight line right to our point of interest. And as I've already said and mentioned, I wish so much there were a bunch of clouds in the sky, because that would give it a lot more movement other than us what appears like we're going to be zooming into it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fire on my Sony A7s II. I'm going to switch it to where I can see in the viewfinder, and I'm going to stand here, put my camera up to my eye to where I can see, and I'm going to line up that peak, and I'm going to snap a picture. Then I'm going to take a step forward, and same thing, right on that intersection, that top middle point, right there on the point, take a picture, take a step, and we're going to do that all the way until we are to where we think we need to be to get really good movement and a good looks to this hyperlapse. Okay, so now we are officially going to start. I'm going to show probably about the first 5 or so pictures, then you guys will get the idea so I don't bore you to tears. So yeah, this is a very time-consuming task, and also to people that may be out and about and seeing you, they may think you're a little off your rocker, may think you're a little goofy, may wondering what the heck you're doing. but the end result is always worth it. This is actually, you guys have already seen it, it's a pretty boring hyperlapse because again, there's no clouds in the sky, there's no people around, there's no movement. It is a Sunday afternoon here in a small southwest Oklahoma town. So that's why there's not much going on. School is not in session, it's the weekend. Okay, so that's all the shooting for that hyperlapse. Now let me show you guys how to edit that using Adobe Premiere Pro, which is the editing program of my choice. If you use Final Cut Pro, Sony Vegas, another editing platform, that's all fine and great. You can do the same thing. It's just the basic idea of what we're doing is all the same. So you guys will surely be able to follow along even if you're not using Premiere Pro. Okay, so let's get started. Let's get started on the first one of the basketball gymnasium where we just go straight into it. So we're going to right click, we're going to do a new item, and we're going to do a sequence. And again, we're in Adobe Premiere Pro. So if you guys edit in something other than Adobe Premiere Pro, just understand and follow along with the concept of what I'm doing, and you should be able to know how to stitch photos together and create a like you would to create a time lapse, and it'll become a hyperlapse because the camera is moving. So anyways, got a little off track there, but AVC HD, we're just going to do a 1080p video. I like to do 30 frames per second, so we're going to click OK. That sets up our sequence. And so now we are going to right click over here and we are going to import our photos. Right here you can see my two sets of different photos. It's important that you put your set of photos in a folder of its own. So here are the first one for the gymnasium, and what we're going to do here, guys, is we're going to just single click the very first one, then go down here into the lower left and click options. And then by default, this image sequence here is not selected, but we are going to select image sequence, and then we're going to hit import. Now what that is going to do is that is going to put it all together already as a quote-unquote video file to where we don't have to stack each photo in here and then animate it. So for those of you guys in Final Cut Pro and it's Sony Vegas, I know in Sony Vegas I don't really, yeah, there actually is a way to do this too, and I'm sure there was a way in Final Cut Pro, but the way I always did it in Sony Vegas before I made the switch to Adobe Premiere Pro was I always had to stack all the photos in here and change the length that it would show each photo, and that gave us that look, the animation. So as you can see, if we drag from left to right when we scrub here, you can see that we have movement into the gymnasium. So I'm just going to take this file and drag it down here. I'm going to click Keep Existing Settings. Okay, so you're going to notice here that we are way scaled in. So we're going to single click, hit Effect Controls up here. Then on our scale, we're going to want to go down and scale out as far as we can until we don't have these ugly black bars on each side. So we actually need to come up until it looks about right there. Now, you also have a little bit of play because our photos were shot in a 4:3 ratio and our video is a 1080, so we have a little play up and down. It looks like about right there at about 651 is about the best we can get. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to scrub or scroll all the way to the left, and I'm going to hit I on my keyboard for in, go to the very end, and hit O on my keyboard for out, and I'm going to do what I call pre-rendering, which we go to Sequence, Render In to Out. And then what this is going to do is this is going to pre-render this to where it'll play back really smooth as it will look whenever I do the actual render. So we're about halfway done here, and 75%, and now we're going to be able to see what this looks like. And it's not going to be perfect. See how it's a little jittery? That's because I didn't use a monopod, and I would highly recommend to use a monopod. I just couldn't find mine, of course. So anyways, again, just spacebar, and you can see this effect you get. And I'm telling you guys, if there had been clouds, I can't say it enough. Actually, there is a little bitty thin cloud. You can kind of see it moving if you look right there. But what we're going to do to kind of smooth this out, now that we have our scaling in to 46 and we've messed with this, what we need to do is we need to right click and click Nest, which basically makes this now like it was a 1920 by 1080 video coming straight off the camera. Now as you see, we're at 100% and all our values are to default. So for instance, if we were to zoom out, we're not scaled in anymore. We are at 100%, we're good to go. So now, to stabilize this, we're going to go over here to Effects, and you can type in Warp here,
but I'm looking for warp stabilizer, but I already have it in my favorites folder, and it's right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click, and I'm going to drag this over there. I'm going to hit cancel because by default, the smoothness is set to 50. I like to change mine to about 35, and then I'm going to hit analyze. So basically, for those of you who are unfamiliar with warp stabilizer, what it does is it's kind of digitally stabilizing your footage. So it's kind of looking for points that are similar, and it's going to try to crop and rotate each picture to make it all line up so it comes across as being smooth. You can see over here we got 10 seconds left, or 73% done. And once it does that, it ought to help. It may not be perfect, but it'll look a little bit better. Just about done, and it's done. So now I have my in and out previously set from earlier. I'm going to go to sequence render into out again. Now that we have our warp stabilization applied. And let's check out and see how much better it made it look. So see how much more smooth that looks, guys. That's amazing how much that digital stabilization does. And I know you're sick and tired of hearing me saying it, but if you actually go to a place where you have people, cars, clouds, movement, these hyperlapses just look killer. So there's our first one, and now let's get back outside and let's shoot our second one. Okay, so for this second hyperlapse, I'm going to be using this field house over here that's for the varsity football team. And instead of like I did on the basketball gymnasium where I just went straight into it, what I'm going to do as far as my path goes, I'm going to start over here to the left, and I'm going to swing out like a crescent moon or like a half circle, swing out and around, not probably quite 180 degrees around it, but you know, just a little ways, and do what I call a swing type path. So let's do it. Back in Adobe Premiere Pro, and it's time to edit this second hyperlapse. So I've already got my sequence created, and I'm going to right click, new item, blah blah blah. So I'm going to right click, import, and now we want our second batch of photos that I've taken off the SD card and put into this folder. And this is going to be a very short hyperlapse. I didn't take very many photos, but again, single click the very first one. Options, by default image sequence is not selected, so we want to select it. Then bottom right corner, import, and then as you can see, here is our little half turn, quarter turn, whatever you want to call it. Actually, some people showed up sitting at a picnic table over there, and they were just staring at me like I told you guys earlier. Just kind of look weird. Keep existing settings, single click up here to effect controls. Again, we got to scale out because we shot in 4:3 and we're in 16:9. So, and we're shooting pictures at a whole lot higher resolution than 1920 by 1080. No more black bars. Let's go ahead and scale up a little bit, or move the picture up a little bit. That looks good to me. Very first of the video here, going to go to the end, going to hit O for out, sequence, render into out, and again what we're doing is pre-rendering. Okay, so there we go, pretty jittery as you can see. Well, let's see how good that digital stabilization does, aka warp stabilizer. So what we're going to do is click on effects down here in the lower left. Again, you can type in warp and find warp stabilizer, but I have it in my favorites folder. Warp stabilizer, drag over, going to hit go to about 35% is what I have figured out that I liked. Oop, I forgot. Okay, so see, if you ever get this message, it's because it's not going to work because we are still scaled in, and what we need to do is we first need to right click and click nest, which makes this now a 100, it's scaled to 100%, and so now we are good to go for the warp stabilizer. So click cancel. And again, you can do 50% if you want. This is all experimentational. Is that a word? 35%, and then analyze. And so it's going to go through all 37 frames. Again, this is a really quick hyperlapse, just a little over a second. But that's okay. Hyperlapses are awesome for B-roll and quick little insert parts of your videos. So we're going to hit spacebar, and look how nice that looks. I mean, I'm telling you, I'm really impressed with this warp stabilizer. And so there's our second hyperlapse, guys. I am going to leave you guys with several hyperlapses that I've done in the past, included these two. And if you enjoyed this video, please be sure to smash that thumbs up button. Also be sure to subscribe. I'll have more, not only just random tutorials for time lapses using various cameras, hyperlapses using various cameras, drone videos, Adobe Premiere Pro, editing videos, just all kinds of tutorials and how-tos, tech reviews, unboxings, vlogs, production videos, you name it, guys. I like to dabble in a little bit of everything. So, guys, I appreciate your time. This is Dylan. Hope you learned something. Have a good one.